Welcome to Vancouver Carpenter. I'm Ben, and today I'm going to be teaching how to tape a butt joint. So first off, what is a butt joint? It's when the ends of the panels meet to create a joint that needs to be floated out to hide the tape. Because once you apply the tape, you now have a little hump that needs to be floated out. So let's show you one of those and how I like to tape them when I'm taping by hand. Now first off, what I have here is taping mud and a 6-inch knife, paper tape, and a bunch of drywall ready to be taped. And here is the butt joint in question. Now yesterday I carved a V out of it and pre-filled it. And you can watch my video on pre-filling drywall if you want to know what I'm talking about. It's a very important step if you want to help eliminate cracks. There's got to be mud in the joint if you don't want to have cracks down the road. Okay, so how do you tape a butt joint? It's pretty simple really. I like to use what I call the side swipe method. So I've got some taping mud that's fairly runny, like it'll run off the knife if I shake it after a while. But anyways, I start at the top of the joint and I just go down like this, down like this. Now if you're new, you might struggle with that and you're probably just going to be doing it bit by bit like that. And that's okay too. Doesn't really matter how you get it on there as long as you get it on there. So now I'm going to flatten it out a little bit to make my job easier. It's easier to flatten it out right now than it is once you have the tape on top. So I now have about 1/8 of an inch of mud here, evenly spread. The next thing is I want to make sure I center my tape. And so when I'm doing this, sometimes I'll actually find the joint. Okay, there's the joint. And there's the joint. So now I've got 2 markers to center my tape. Okay, this part is important. When you are taping a joint, there's a crease in your paper tape. And this crease goes against the wall. This is very important. If you do it backwards by accident, the crease will peek out and make the joint larger. So this is very important that the crease goes against the wall. So now I'm centering it on that mark I made. I'm going down here, center it down at the bottom. And now I just tear it off at the bottom nice and square. So now what I like to do is I like to actually make sure that it gets a chance to soak in some of the glue from the taping mud. So I'm just sort of pressing it in firmly, making sure there's no bubbles and giving the tape a second to absorb some of the glue in the taping mud. And if you're in the States, use an all-purpose, a heavyweight all-purpose. Okay, now that this has sat here for a second, I'm just going to go ahead and wipe out the tape from underneath. Now, keep in mind, you need a very small amount of mud under the tape. If you're pressing everything out, what's going to happen is you're not going to have enough mud under the tape to bind it to the wall. So you want about a few microns thick. In all honesty, I don't know, it's maybe like 1/2 mil or something under the tape. So now I'm going to start wiping it out. Pressing pretty firmly. You can see I'm using my thumb on the blade. Just wiping it out from each side. And when I get to the bottom, this bit's a little bit tricky. What I do is I just kind of wipe side to side. All right, now let's take a good look at this so you can see what it should look like. So as you can see, I haven't left any heavy edges here. It's all feathered really nicely. And if you look really close, you can see there's a little bit of mud underneath the tape. You can see it shining there. So I really took my time to make sure there wasn't any globs or any heavy edges. Everything was nicely settled, real smooth and flat. Now this does take some practice. I have done thousands and thousands of these. So don't expect it to look like that on your first go, but if you're really struggling, one thing I would suggest is thin down your mud. You might be having your mud too thick, and you can do that as simply as putting a bit of mud in a pan, add a little bit of water, and it'll work in as you're using it. So this might even be too thick sometimes, but I'm used to using it. So anyways, I hope with that information, you're able to tape some wicked butt joints. and not have cracks down the road. Remember that pre-filling thing, it's important. Thanks for watching. This is Ben from Vancouver Carpenter.